Welcome, everyone, to the Tim and Katherine Ballard podcast. Is it the Tim Ballard podcast with Katherine?
It's the Tim and Katherine podcast.
I don't know, because the opening thing just says...
Yeah, but we're working on that.
Okay, all right. Welcome to the podcast. This time, we're going to kind of follow up on something we talked about previously. We've talked about Haiti a few times. And this time, and we alluded to... We referenced the fact that the search for Gardy is ongoing. And so I kind of wanted to get a little bit more into that and have you give us an example of the work that you've done or continue to do in Haiti. And is there an operation that sticks out that you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're always criticized, like, why would you work in Haiti? It's corrupt, and it is, as the story we'll tell today illustrates. But I never understand it. It's like, but if we can rescue people, why wouldn't we? Notwithstanding.
Well, and you have studied the history of Haiti. You have a love for Haiti of what it could be, the right. Spirit that's there.
Right. Yeah, it's the original European colony that really launched the United States. It's where Columbus. We should do a whole podcast on Columbus. Because some people are like, Columbus is evil. Well, there's complexities to that story, but that was the base from which everything else grew into finding the North American continent, the country we live in. So yeah, I think Haiti is almost like this sacred place, even though it's beat up and a lot of evil goes on there, but it doesn't mean that those kids don't deserve someone to come.
And there's a hero that you named the operation or the documentary after this hero, right?
Yeah, the documentary that actually tells the story we're going to tell today. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. It's called Operation Toussaint. Toussaint Louverture was kind of like the George Washington of independence of Haiti. In fact, Haiti is the only country that we know of recorded in history where the slaves rose up and wrested control from the European slavers, took the country. They were the first to constitutionally abolish slavery. In fact, when Frederick Douglass was fighting for freedom, he referred to the sons and daughters of Haiti as the original pioneer abolitionists of the 19th century, because they did what many hoped the American slaves would do, just rise up. And they tried at times, but it took a civil war to finally end it. And something like that happened in Haiti. It's really a miraculous story we should tell sometime about what happened there and how Haiti does have this spirit of liberty, this legacy of liberty, if we can reactivate it. So that is one reason, that and Gardy, why we would never give up. If there was someone to rescue there, because we knew no one else was going to go there. And
Colleen and Collet. I have a dream. This was a project that we started, and we've not been able to continue working on it, but it's my dream to keep it going. The DNA project, remember, that you're working on in Haiti? That they have these mobile labs that are going around. In Haiti, there's no documentation. You have a baby.
No birth certificate.
Nothing. There's nothing. There's no...
Which makes it very easy to traffic.
It's just like you just say, this was my baby, or that's her baby, or whatever. And so we began this project of getting DNA for everybody. So they'd have the library of like, this is my DNA, and therefore I belong to this family. And it's my dream to get that back up and running, because it is also my dream to be able to take Colleen and Collet back to Haiti and help them find
their
family, aunts, second cousins twice removed, anybody. That it's my dream to be able to do that someday. And one, it needs to be a lot safer than it is right now. And two, we need to get that DNA project back up and running. Okay, so back to what you were gonna the operation.
So we've talked about our kids who, from the best information we have, were survived the earthquake, but crying over the dead bodies of their families, and some older woman who did her best to help took them to what she thought was an orphanage, and of course it wasn't. It was that front where Gardy was, and we've told that story. Well, simultaneously, while that was happening, there was another little girl. We believe she was about 6 years old. We'll call her Rosie. And she was in the same condition as our kids. And from the best information we have, she was approached not by a kind woman, but by an evil woman. And this woman goes by the name of Cho, which means like hot and sexy, because that's her business. She's a trafficker. And she belongs to a larger organization of traffickers. Remember, it's after earthquakes, wars. It's in those vulnerable times when traffickers come in, and it's harvest time. That's what those false orphanages were, just traps. And this little girl was picked up at around 6 or 7 years old by this trafficker who said, "I'll take care of you." Well, she ended up trafficking this little girl until she was well into her teens. And this little girl was kept behind a red door. A red door that was in the middle of just Port-au-Prince. If you walked by it, you'd think it was some kind of janitor's closet, or you wouldn't think anything of it. Just this red steel door that looks like nothing. Well, if you open that door and go inside, it's where it's a rape room. It's where you pay money to go have sex with children and perhaps some adults. And the story we're going to tell is her story. And it really is one of hope. It's devastating, but it's one of hope. So do you remember Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah.
That I was not there?
There's been a lot of those lately. But no, I remember this one. There was a big push nationally about the dangers of an event like the Super Bowl. This was that same year, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That it's at these big, exciting gatherings where the whole nation is thinking we're watching a game, that there's a whole separate activity going on. Probably multiple different illegal, horrible activities. But the one that we were focusing on, that the nation was focusing on, was trafficking.
Right. So, interestingly, coincidentally, we were down in Haiti. Again, looking for Gardy. We look at every lead, so we try to find traffickers. And our teams who were forward deployed found these traffickers.
Can I ask, so in a place like Haiti, where you've always worked with law enforcement, when you go into a country and you're getting ready to do an op, you do a couple things. You establish a relationship with law enforcement, and you establish a relationship with aftercare. And if you can't get those two things, then no work is done.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not a rogue or a vigilante group.
And we could get into a whole thing about aftercare. But you always do those two things. Establish a connection with law enforcement and a connection with aftercare.
Right.
So in a place like Haiti, and it's very complicated with any place where you have so much poverty, you're going to have corruption, because those go hand in hand. You cannot have an impoverished people with no options and not have corruption and crime. It's the beast that extreme poverty produces. So how do you go about establishing a legitimate connection with law enforcement in Haiti?
Well, it was during the Gardy orphanage case that we did exactly that. We went pretty high up the ladder to attorney general level type prosecutors, chiefs of police. So they were with the success of that, we continued. And we just said, we're here for Gardy, but we know looking for Gardy, we're going to find others. And that's exactly what happened. We found an organization led by this woman. It's interesting that it's always women. So often, more than people realize. Men are always involved as well, but this woman show and her kind of her cohorts, her minions, were trafficking in children, including this little girl Rosie, who she had since we believe about 6 or 7 years old from the earthquake, from the aftermath. And what happened was we convinced them that they needed to come and meet the bosses who wanted to exploit children. We had a really nice guy who donated a yacht so we could play the role. We docked that yacht outside of a resort in Haiti, an old beat up resort. You know, Haiti used to actually be they used to call it the Pearl of the Caribbean. It used to be a place where you would go like Jamaica or...
Not that long ago.
Right. My grandparents talk about going to Haiti, and it's just through corruption has been just devastated. So we end up doing this operation, and again, you can watch the whole story on Operation Toussaint on Amazon Prime. And we ended up identifying these traffickers, and they brought all these, I want to say over 25 girls to this party that they thought they was going to be just a sex party at this resort. It was about this time that Tony Robbins started wanting to get involved, and he wanted to see it. So he actually witnessed this entire thing, and he's talked about it. In fact, I was just watching him on Date with Destiny, and he brought it up. He brought up the rescue op that he had witnessed. And the traffickers gathered on Super Bowl Sunday, 2018, at this resort. Tony and I and others were on the yacht, and we wanted to so they bring the kids, we put the kids in a safe place, and we made them come out to the yacht because you want to separate them so they don't have contact with the kids once, you know, they're brought to the sting location. And I remember sitting on that yacht. I remember watching the documentary with you for the first time, and I remember you just like had to put your head down and cover your ears because you're watching me undercover for the first time, talking to one of these traffickers about how they had just raped a 10-year-old, filmed it, and were distributing it to the United States. And so it was just like, wow, we've got to get these guys. The operation went smoothly. It went as we planned. And all the traffickers were arrested, and the kids they were supposed to go to the aftercare home who we had worked with and designated, and they were ready. Well, this particular group was more connected than we thought. And within days of the operation, certain judges, corrupt judges, came in and just destroyed the whole thing. Released all the traffickers, and also didn't let the kids go to aftercare. It was horrible. You know, you make these plans, and it's like, what just happened? And it's embarrassing because I take responsibility, at least in part, for trusting that, you know, we could pull this off. But a lot of the girls were released right back into the hands of the traffickers, who corrupt judges let out through payoffs. So at this point, I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's epic fail. Do you remember I told you I got a phone call days after the operation? I was in Washington, D.C. The call came in at like 2 a.m. Do you remember this?
No.
And it was a thick Haitian voice saying
Oh, yeah. I do remember that. You had to just give me a little more details. Yes. Yeah.
And do you remember what they said to me?
It was a threat.
They said, we know it was you. It was a death threat.
Yeah.
We know it was you. We're coming for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Because what I remember before the operation went down.
Someone else got a call also, right? There were a couple people.
Yeah, there were a couple people, and Guesno was one of them. Because Guesno always followed us on these operations because we always hoped we'd find Gardy.
And he was always and has been and still is very instrumental with keeping the connections and the getting us with the right law enforcement, the right people that are going to help us. He's very much involved.
Right, but he gets betrayed too. So I remember hanging up that phone in that DC hotel room thinking, oh my gosh, first of all, how to get my phone number. I pick up the phone, I call Guesno, I said, Guesno, I told you this was going to happen because before the operation went down, I called him. I said, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I don't know why. we really have to trust this law enforcement. Can we trust them? And I remember him saying, Tim, it's the best we got. And if you give up on this, you've given up on my son. Mm-hmm. And I was like, boy, I made that promise. Mm-hmm. And so we went through with it. And when I called him, he says, I know why you're calling. I got a phone call too. All the traffickers are gone and the kids have been released. We don't know where they are. And it's just like, wow, and this is the risk. I mean, this is why people say don't work in Haiti, because things like this happen. But then at the same time, you get rescue operations that do happen, like our own kids. So Guesto says, but don't worry, I have a contingency plan. Like, what's your contingency plan?
We got to have Guesto on here sometime. He is with all that he's gone through, he only smiles. He's the eternal optimist.
He is. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah. We'll have him on.
And I said, what's your plan? He says, the Rotary Club of Port-au-Prince. I said, wow, that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. What's the Rotary Club going to do? He's like, well, I showed them the footage. Because what happened was the judge had flipped the narrative and said that the Americans were the bad guys. The Americans got away. The Haitians, who were the traffickers, were the good guys. And that's how they justified it. He says, but guess what? We filmed this from 7 different angles. We have everyone on tape. We have the guy laughing, and you see it in the documentary about raping a 10-year-old. And the 10-year-old was there. He said, and you're going to get her. She's yours for the weekend. So I said, well, great. But what do we do with that? He said, well, the Rotary Club's going to host you at a hotel, and you're going to come down, and you're going to show the evidence. He says, now I can promise you safe passage to the venue, but once you reveal this, I'll be honest with you, we don't know how far this goes up, so you may not make it back out. And then he calls me a few days later and says, the Rotary Club's not going to host it because the media won't show up unless you bring a famous Haitian with you. Do you remember this?
I do.
And I said, guess no, I don't know.
And at this point, you're afraid to fly into Haiti because the judge has convinced everyone that you guys are the bad guys.
Right.
And so even just flying into Haiti and then your passport and
my name could be on a flag, then
you're
could be
worried
gone.
You're going to be arrested at the airport. Like there was a lot riding on this.
So I said, guess no, can you give me a list of some famous Haitians and I'll try. Like in the top 3 of the names. It says, well, there's this congresswoman who's of Haitian descent, U.S. congresswoman, named Mia Love. And I just got this huge smile on my face, and I said, guess no. She's my congresswoman. And she's the only one who I would consider a friend. In fact, I have her number. So I called her up, and I said, Mia, I'm going to ask you to do something. As a friend, I would advise you to say no to this invitation. As a child rescue operator, I'm still going to ask you to say yes. She's like, well, what do you want me to do? Explain the story. I said, I need you to come to a press conference that may end our lives. But it's going to reveal the truth about the corruption in Haiti and hopefully get these traffickers back in jail. She didn't bat an eye, which to her credit, she's like, let's go. Just tell me when.
I wish more people knew that story and understood how brave and how just 100% she was in that moment. And she's an amazing person, but just there's all these aspects of people that we just don't get to see, and this is an aspect of Mia Love that the voters, I don't think, ever got to see. That was really incredible.
Well, I was devastated because this piece of the story got cut out of the documentary because just for time. And I'm like, but this is like the best part.
Yeah.
I do write about this in my book, Slave Stealers, which, by the way, I have a new edition coming up soon, so stand by for that. It'll be coming out hopefully early next year. So she goes in, and we just blast it. And she gets up, and she can speak perfect Haitian Creole, and she's just blasting away at the corruption, and look what actually happened, and this is insane. And I remember seeing a guy in the back with shifty eyes. I'm like, that's the assassin. I'm like, that's the assassin. He's gonna get us. And So we tell the story, and
We can laugh about it now because we're sitting here in these comfy chairs and you didn't get assassinated. So we can laugh about it.
not yet. So we walk out into the parking lot, and the shifty-eyed guy's following us. And I finally just thought we have to just confront this guy. It's like, so we stop and say, hi. He's like, hi. It's like, I was sent by the president, Jovenel Moise, to listen to this. And he wants to see you tomorrow at the National Palace. Which I was both fearful and excited because, is this a trap?
Yeah, is he? Which side is he on?
Which side is he on? Exactly. How high does this go? So we end up going there. I remember thinking, this is 50-50. I may not return. We get in to his office, and there's actually a picture of this which we'll post, and we tell him the whole story, and he is outraged. I actually think he's a good guy. Because he's a good guy, on July 7th of 2021, a few years after this, his house was raided by Colombian mercenaries, and he was murdered.
It was a sad day, and Haiti has not recovered.
Haiti's not recovered since then. I think this was a man of the people. This was a man.
No one's perfect, and he got blamed because they run out of oil, and everyone is revolting, and there's so many problems. There's so many problems, and so I know that there are a lot of reasons for people not to be happy with him, but Haiti has not recovered.
But we sat there in that meeting, and Mia let out with her, because Jovenel Moise doesn't speak English, and she's just pounding away again. I'm just like, wow. Mia loves the hero of the story. And he just sits there listening, and he's just like, and she might have even said something like, do you think the U.S. government's going to keep helping you when we are down here? These guys are risking their lives at their own cost, and this is how they get treated? They become the bad guys? He turns to the Attorney General, who's sitting in the room, and he says, reissue the warrants. Let's go get these guys. And he did it. And, the ace in the hole, the one we really wanted, was Cho. Because she seemed to be the leader. She was the oldest one. She kind of was leading the rest. And so we went down, I don't know how long, as soon as we could get things ready. I believe it was December of 2018. And we were tracking her for a while, and we located her on the street. Now, we didn't know where her den of nightmares was. Where was the brothel? Where were these kids being abused? We didn't know. But we figured it must have been close to where because she kept popping up on this one street corner. She's like a rat. She'd come up and hide, come up there and disappear. So we got the team together. We were ready to go and located her. We drove to the spot and took her down. They executed the warrant. They arrested her. But something happened that was very interesting on the way to the arrest. And we don't have arrest power. We're just kind of consultants. We're wearing, vests and just kind of coaching. For example, when we got to Cho, there was other guys and the Haitians were missing. And it's like, look over here. And they had a whole stash of like candy and condoms, which was the candy is for the kids, clearly, and the condoms are for the clients. Like things like that, and like making sure they're preserving the evidence correctly and so forth like that. But on the way up to grab her, one of our evidence technicians who's filming all this, he jumps to the back of the van where I am, and it's a van that has like a hatch opening in the back. So there's these 3 Haitian SWAT guys with their SWAT gear, their helmets, and he takes this little GoPro camera and he puts it on the helmet, facing out on the helmet of this cop who's just letting him do it, and then takes duct tape and just starts wrapping it, making it look like some kind of miner cap. And I'm watching like Justice, what are you doing? He's like, we're T-minus like 3 minutes. He's like, I don't know, but I think that guy needs a camera on his head. I was like, okay. All right. So we end up getting there, executing the warrant. Most of us get out of the van and go right at the sliding door and go get them. And we're kind of trying to process evidence, and they arrested several people on the scene who were either involved or clients. And then as things were kind of calming, I look across the street and I see the red door. And the red door opens up, and out come these 3 young girls. They look to be between 15 and 17-ish. And they're all clearly dressed up like, like sex workers. Turns out that I think amongst them there was 4 little babies who had been born through rape, and they were leveraging those babies. If you want to see them, you got to keep working, kind of thing. Those babies will later be recovered and returned to their moms in aftercare. But as they came out, 3 of them, then this Haitian cop comes out. What had happened is when the van stopped, we all went one way where Cho was, but this guy went the other. He got out and peeled out the other way. I didn't see that happen, but learned later that's what he did. Because when he got out, he looked over and he saw a young girl run into the red door and close it. And he thought that was suspicious, so he pursued, opened the red door, walks in, and witnesses this den of hell. It's just it looks like a dungeon, and we can get footage hopefully and show it of what this place looked like, and people being raped. And he came out kind of, the 3 girls got out, we got them into safety, and then he comes out, the cop, and he's like, I lost him. It's like, who'd you lose? It's like all the bad guys, all the Johns or the predators, they all ran, and I couldn't keep. I focused on the girls. I couldn't focus on them, and they're gone. And they're like, oh man, what are we doing? And then the closer I got, and the dust was settling, it was dark. As he got closer to where like the headlights, where our cars were, my heart skipped a beat, and I looked, and it was the cop who had the camera. So we grabbed the footage, took it back to our kind of headquarters, uploaded it, and I saw something I'd never seen before. He literally captured on film the actual sexual abuse happening. I mean, I've done dozens of raids and never has that happened. That's pretty solid evidence about what she had been up to, and it was a total miracle. The next day, we're now into 2019. I think this was in January 2019. One of the little girls, the youngest one was Rosie, who shared a similar story as our children. As she was crying over the death of her family, and Joe picked her up and promised to take care of her. She was silent for 24 hours, didn't talk. And she didn't talk until January 10th, when our aftercare director, Jessica Mass, went down, and the first words out of her mouth, and she's holding a teddy bear, and we have this footage on the documentary, and Jessica said her first words were, "Can I have hope? Is this real? Am I really out of this?" And Jessica assured her that yes, it's over. We are actually good guys, and you're done. So little Rosie, said, "Do you realize what today is?" And I think it was January 11th, 2019. She said, "Do you realize what today is?" I was like, "No, what is it?" She said, "It's to the very day, the 9th anniversary of the day I was taken." Because the earthquake was on January 10th, 2010. Cho picked her up on January 11th, 2010. And now it's January 11th, 2019. And she put it together. And she felt God in it. She felt there was a sign. Like she is rescued on the very anniversary, the 9th anniversary of her abduction. We made sure she got the aftercare she needed. And once again, it shows how God cares about the one. And what it taught me was, no wonder she didn't talk for a day or two, whatever, because who would ever find her? She knew that she was taken and kidnapped and being trafficked in one of the most obscure countries in the world. And not only that, one of the most obscure corners, dens of hell, one of the most obscure places in that obscure country behind a little red door. No one's going to open that door.
And she has no family. She lost him in the earthquake. And I'm like, I can't process that loneliness. That loneliness. I can't process that.
Yeah, it's almost an impossibility that she could ever be rescued. And yet the red door opened and she was liberated. And I remember making a commitment, we will go anywhere because there are red doors everywhere. And so as sad as the story is, it is a story of hope. Because again, it's not just a white paper or flying a flag of despair. It is a solution. And I can tell you right now that one organization that I sit on the board, Aerial Recovery, they are doing it right now. They've identified a couple of red doors right now in Latin America, and they are pursuing the rescue. So there is hope, but we need you to contribute to that hope, even if it's just prayers, to help us find these lost children.
But I would add, our prayers need to be, what do you want me to do? Not just, we pray for others, and that is beautiful and powerful, and I've felt the power of others' prayers for me. But we need to pray for, what does God want me to do? What does he want me to do today? And there's just no end to need. There's no end to it. Even getting outside the world of trafficking, which is in and of itself big enough to require everybody's attention. But there is no need. There's no end to need around us. It's just constant. And I think you're not supposed to reference the time of the year that you're doing a podcast so it can be timeless or whatever, but this is the Christmas season that we're in right now, and it's such a beautiful time to reflect on, what can I be doing to bless mankind? I just started reading A Christmas Carol to the kids last night. We like to read that. Can't say I read it every year, but they want me to read it every year, and we read it a lot. But it's such a beautiful story of recognizing man's responsibility to help. It is our responsibility to help those around us. And sometimes, and I know that this is true, the topic of child trafficking it is very heavy. And maybe that's not the area that you feel like you can just dive in and put your efforts in, because it just pulls you down, and I get that, and I can sympathize with that. But that doesn't mean that there's not another area where we can do good. And I just encourage us. Colleen, when I was asking the kids, what kind of activities do you want to do for Christmas this year? It's very exhaustive, the amount of celebration that goes into Christmas. There has to be something every day, and it's fun, and the traditions are great. So I was asking the kids, what are some of the traditions that you want me to make sure I get on the calendar that we don't miss? And Colleen said, I want to do something for the homeless. Why don't we ever do anything for the homeless? And I was like, oh, I don't know why we don't ever do anything for the homeless. And I feel really bad now, and we're going to do something for the homeless. That's a great idea, Colleen. But it's those things. It's those things that make a difference. And let's commit right now, Tim, that you and I, per Colleen's request, are going to do something for the homeless this Christmas season. And I just would like to say to everyone else, do something to benefit mankind. That is what we need in this world. We need to bring the light of Christ. And that is done through service. That's what Christ did. Christ served. Before he did anything else, he served. And that's what we need to do. We need to bring the light of Christ, help others, dive into child trafficking if you can, and these are very valiant efforts that need support. But don't let that stop you if it's too heavy. Find something you can do today. What can I do, Katherine? What can I do today to help someone?
Excellent. I don't think I can add to those words. So
I'm
with
always
that,
the last word. I feel
well, because you have the best words. So
I won't take the last word next time, guys.
We're going to end with that invitation. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.